What if we told you that the Chinese Communist Party owes American citizens more than $1 trillion in unpaid debt, that this debt is backed by international law, and that the story of this forgotten obligation could hold the key to today's biggest geopolitical standoff? Welcome to China Debt Collective, where we uncover the hidden history of China's sovereign default and why it still matters. Between the late 1800s and the early 20th century, the government of China, then ruled by the Qing dynasty and later the Republic of China, issued sovereign bonds to fund infrastructure and modernization. Railroads, ports, universities, telegraphs, industrialization. Much of it was financed with borrowed capital from American and British investors. China would not be the nation it is today were it not for the proceeds from these bonds. These weren't just investment fads. They were legally binding financial instruments, issued under the rule of law and sold through major Western banks. Many were even governed by British and American contract law. Today, thousands of American families still hold these bonds. They were passed down through generations as heirlooms, and they remain unpaid. When the Chinese Communist Party seized power, they rejected the debts of the former government. The People's Republic of China, led by Chairman Mao, declared that it would not honor the bonds issued by the Republic of China. In international finance, this is known as a sovereign default, but unlike other nations that have defaulted and later restructured or repaid, the CCP simply walked away. To this day, the PRC has never repaid a penny of this debt to American bondholders. Now here's the twist. China didn't default on everyone. In 1987, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher forced the Chinese government to settle its outstanding bond debt with British citizens as a precondition for diplomatic negotiations over Hong Kong. The UK held firm, and China paid up. American bondholders, however, have never received the same justice, and now China remains in a state of selective default. Why? That's a question still echoing in Washington. According to international law, successor governments are responsible for the debts of their predecessors. That precedent was set long ago and upheld in countless cases. China today enjoys the full benefits of that same international system. It issues bonds, trades on global markets, and is a member of the World Trade Organization. Yet it refuses to acknowledge its outstanding debt to American citizens. These bonds were governed by Anglo-American law. The obligations haven't disappeared, they've simply been ignored. Fast forward to today. The U.S. and China are locked in a new Cold War, economically, technologically, and ideologically. Washington policymakers from both parties are re-examining every point of leverage. And now, these old Chinese bonds are back in the spotlight. In Congress, resolutions have been introduced to require the Treasury Department to enforce repayment or offset China's debt against U.S. holdings of Chinese assets. Think of it as financial justice, or even reparations, for decades of theft, intellectual property abuse, and unreciprocated trade. As of 2021, the face value of the debt exceeds $1.6 trillion, an enormous sum that could shift global balance sheets overnight. Since the bonds issued were done so with gold as its basis, that is, gold dollars or gold pounds, the value of the bonds today is even higher as the price of gold has increased dramatically. This isn't just about finance, it's about fairness. Tens of thousands of American families, many elderly or retired, hold these bonds as part of their family legacy. They're not hedge funds, they're not speculators. They're Americans who invested in a rising China more than a century ago and have waited patiently for justice. Now they want their government to act. The attention that China's debt obligations has received is growing. Lawmakers, legal experts, and advocacy groups are pushing for action. In 2020, the Trump administration began investigating ways to enforce bondholder claims. Today, voices in both parties are calling for repayment, offsets, or sanctions. If the U.S. is serious about confronting China economically, this issue can no longer be ignored. It's not just a financial question, it's a matter of principle, a test of sovereignty, and a challenge to a communist regime that believes it's above the rules. This is why China Debt Collective exists. We're here to tell the story, from the bond markets of the 1920s to the diplomatic standoffs of today, to uncover the truth that's been buried for too long, and to hold one of the world's most powerful regimes accountable. Subscribe to follow the full journey as we reveal the documents, the people, the history, and the fight to make China pay its debts. This is more than finance. This is justice.